Pinny Grills and I cooked up the idea of Bird's Eye View in a Euston Station cafe back in 2002, dreaming with all the passion and ambition of naive 25-year-olds. I had no idea that 9 years later, more than that, isn't it? It's 10, yes, 10 years later, I'll be standing here having run 7 international film festivals, premiered Oscar-winning films, reviving early silent films with new scores from world-class musicians. I guess Pinny and I lit a fire, and I've been keeping it well-fueled ever since. So it's exciting, this shift in consciousness, but it takes time for tangible change to follow on from that. The statistics about women filmmakers in the UK are edging up, but we really have to keep this issue ablaze and take it further.
I started working in this industry when I was 17, and I didn't work with a single female director until I was 25. And that was the wonderful Moira and Eyre. However, in the last few years, I have worked with many, many more female filmmakers, including the amazing Sandra Goldbacher, Tinj Krishnan, who's here this evening, Lona Scherfig, and I've played parts penned by women such as the amazing Abby Morgan, and I am incredibly grateful to them. Women who've given me these roles and have acted as amazing role models to me. And I'm in such admiration for any women who exist in such an uncomfortable landscape of being forever the exception. Unfortunately, in Hollywood, only 5% of all the films made are directed by women. That's actually down from last year, which was 7%. In the UK, we're doing a bit better, and it's edging up to the high 15%. But these are still staggeringly very depressing statistics. But we live in a staggeringly unequal world. I would say, though, that in a strange way, this works to our benefit, because what could be a better impetus for creative energy than to know that those stories need to be told? It's very clear to me in the films that we watch, in the films that shape so many of our ideas, our identities, and our realities, that we need stories to come from both the male and female perspective. Not for any puritanical notion of political correctness, because we know that artistic genius can come from both men and women. And today is International Women's Day, a day that started over 100 years ago, campaigning for suffrage and equal rights for women. It is vital that we carry this torch forward.
What's amazing about having both of you sitting either side of me is this range of styles. I mean, you couldn't possibly pigeonhole women writers, could you, into one type of film? I mean, maybe more in particular, you can talk to us about how you've made, you were saying, rom-com, period drama, vampire. You obviously don't feel limited by genre in any way.
No, I don't. No. In fact, I'd almost choose the next project to be as different from the last one as possible.
Why is that?
Why would you want to do the same thing again?
Yeah.
No, I don't. And it's the same in my work for theatre as well. I've one play that they're all very, very different. But I think it's because I'm attracted by stories, not by genres or by... individual stories. They're the kind of... They're what attract me.
And what... Go on.
I can add.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say that for me, I write or make the films that I want to watch, and I don't particularly just want to watch one kind of film.
Yeah, I would quite agree.
I certainly don't want to watch the film that someone tells me to write. I want to, make the film that I most would like to see. So that changes,
But I'm sure you both would say, and obviously certainly Sally, is some kind of obvious ways in the way in which you bring yourself to the film as well. It comes from what's within you. Tell us a bit about what's personal about My Brother the Devil for you.
Yeah, well, you could see from that, it's an Arab family. The two brothers are of Egyptian origin, although they're Londoners. Their parents are from Egypt. And I'm half Egyptian, so that's a very obvious link there. And then I've been living in Hackney for 10 years and wanted to do a film about the area that I was living in. And so that inspired the film. And that's certainly not the case for, I'm actually working on something right now that doesn't have that Arab angle, but you always find yourself in the material. So for me, I could only ever work on something that I was I felt there was a connection of some sort or some kind of way in or link that would kind of sustain the pain of making a film, I think.
And do you think that's part of the agony? Do you think that's part of why it is important that all different kinds of people write films? The fact that there's so much of yourself that goes into it.
Yes, I think so, whether the story is directly about you or not. But yes, I too write the films I want to see. And often I look in the listings and I think, where is the film I want to see this week? And it's very, very hard to find. And I think that is why it's so important that we feel we can make our own stories, and that we do. You know, I think when I was in my early 20s, I would not have considered directing as a career or screenwriting as a career. And I think that far, far, far more young women of that age now are considering it. And I think we'll see them coming up and changing things.
And hopefully more by seeing people like you, you know, as role models and that.
That's a very weird position to be in, I'm afraid. but yes, yeah. I think that's why I'm here, because I think if when you're one of such a tiny % of people, bizarrely, who do such an interesting and wonderful job, and a tiny % of women, should I say, who do this wonderful job, I just thought, if there was any way that me speaking about it could encourage other people towards it, because it is a wonderful career.
And one thing I was just thinking about, we had a conversation about the characters that you write, and sort of writing female characters and complex female characters, and that's something that is bizarrely unusual on screen.
I don't just write. I mean, I don't just write female characters. I write bizarre and complicated men as well. And I think what I'm most interested in, most of my stories are kind of quite equal. There's sort of equal in their male and female roles. But I think what is interesting is that, I mean, one of the things that came up while Byzantium was going into production that I was quite depressed by was that one of the things that made it difficult to find funding was the fact that it didn't have a strong male protagonist. And I sort of thought, gosh, you know, that... And it'll only take a few films to knock that idea. And I think it's already shaking.
What, the idea that you can't market a film
unless
you can't market a film
unless it's got that pattern, you know. And so I sort of think, well, you know, you just have to keep writing films that are so good that people don't actually notice that they haven't been watching a strong male protagonist for an hour and a half. You know. It's all there to be changed. And I think the wonderful thing about female characters is kind of how underwritten they are. Like the fabulous female villainesses that you used to get in old Hitchcock movies. Where have they gone? You just don't see them. And mother and daughter relationships, where are they? And buddy movies where the buddies are girls. You know, Bridesmaids.
Yeah, one.
You know.
That one.
But yes, I think it's all, and I think it's fresh territory, like father and son films. I think especially American father and son films, they're quite, it's almost hard to find new ground to mine. They're so overdone.
So Sally, your film is mainly about men.
Yes, it is. It's really very much about what it means to be a man for the young guys, the two brothers in the film. And I didn't really think about the fact that, you know, I was a woman doing this kind of looking at what it means to be a man. Because you're not really aware of it, you're just attracted to a world, and for me it was a world, and I hadn't nailed down exactly what the story would be when I started my research. So I was immersed in this very macho kind of world where I was the only girl. And then, you know, that I started to look at the kind of machismo and that's almost homoerotic between these guys.
So when you were researching
when I was researching.
So tell us a bit about what you were doing when you were researching it.
Well, the film takes place in a kind of urban, kind of gangland type of world that we've seen on British screens before, but it's quite a different take on that world. I hope a more honest take. And I got to know a lot of guys who were in gangs in Highbury, Hackney and Brixton. And really spend a lot of time with them, soaking up the world, learning a language, and being a chameleon, kind of on the wall, listening and watching. And that inspired me then to kind of construct the kind of fictitious narrative that I did kind of within that world. So.
But do you think in the relationships that you formed with them, it made a difference that, I hate asking this question, but did it make a difference that you were a woman? Because it sounds...
I often get asked that, and I actually think it probably helped me, if anything, because if I'd been a guy maybe entering that world, there could have been more ego issues or like kind of power issues in terms of what I was doing there. But I think the fact that I could kind of serve as mother-sister role often allowed me in and perhaps to access a kind of sensitivity from and to see a kind of psychological, emotional side that might have been harder to access if you had been a man, because they put up the defences. So
maybe interesting to sort of talk about that. Like, was it always obvious to you that you would direct it as well? Was that important in kind of actually telling the story?
Definitely. I mean, for me, script writing isn't like any other kind of writing because it's filmmaking. It's not just writing. So you can't dissociate it from the fact that it's a film, because a script isn't a film. And more as I was kind of developing the script, I realized how much it was actually just a roadmap and a kind of way to get money for the project. But it wasn't the film, and it had its limitations. There's only so much you can express on a piece of paper when a film is something you experience with all your five senses.
So Moira, as someone who hasn't directed the films that you've made, can you tell us about the relationship with the director and how that feels in terms of your bond with the script, if you like? Do you know what I mean, your kind of conception of the story?
I mean, it's kind of odd coming from the theatre where, you know, where the director's role is to serve the play. And that's what everybody does. You're all in agreement on that you will make the play. But I think with the film, it is different. I think the script is. I think you're right. I think the script is more of a roadmap, and that what you are actually serving as the scriptwriter is the overall 5 sense visual thing. I've been really lucky recently working with Stephen Frears and Neil Jordan, because it's just been like this amazing lesson in filmmaking, and to really see what it is these strange creatures called directors do. I found it really inspiring. Now, I've been fine with the role as screenwriter because what I've done so far is adapt. When it comes to the original screenplay, that I'm sure I want to write because I've fallen so madly in love with working in film, that is something I will be looking to direct myself.
Amazing.
Because I think it's like you say, I think to author a film, it's more than just the screenplay. I think the screenplay is incredibly important.
Well, it's a team sport because, you know, there's so many other people that, you know, it's not just down to one person.
It's the most
contribute.
collaborative medium I've ever worked in, even more so than the theatre, in terms of the amount that other people bring in. It's not just about one creative mind. But you know, having said that, I think in order to author a film, that's what I personally would want to do to achieve it.